It's raining again. It always rains on nights like this. The kind of rain that clings to the windows like it's trying to get in, whispering with every drop that the world outside is colder, quieter, and darker than you remember. Your cruiser hums with the low purr of the heater. A tinny voice from dispatch crackles over the radio, half lost in static. Unit 12, respond to 10 to 23, 242 Myrtle Hollow. Female caller reported a noise in her attic, no visuals. Says she's hearing breathing. Above her bedroom. You don't answer right away. You're still staring through the foggy windshield, watching the way the street lamps stretch across wet pavement. You've heard this one before, the attic call. It comes in waves. Once a week, sometimes twice. Always at night. Always someone hearing something they shouldn't be hearing in the place where they feel most safe. You thumb the radio. Unit 12, 10 to 76 to Myrtle Hollow. As you pull onto the narrow road, the tires hiss along blackened pavement. Most houses are asleep, tucked in like the children inside them. But not all houses dream the same. There are some houses that remember, some houses that wait. You kill the headlights as you pull up to 242, a colonial with blue shutters and a porch that sags just slightly to the left. The rain soaks your jacket the moment you step outside, drumming against the brim of your hat, sliding down your neck in slow rivulets. The door creaks open before you knock. A woman stands there, pale eyes. Wide, I didn't open it, she whispers. You step inside. The air is cold and tight, like it's been bottled for too long. The woman points to the ceiling. You hear it too, now, a steady, slow exhale. Not the wind, not the settling of beams. Something else, something alive. Your hand grazes your flashlight. You follow the hallway toward the back stairs where the attic. Pull down waits like an invitation. The rope hangs low, swaying slightly. You take a breath and pull it down. The ladder unfolds. The breathing stops. You climb, and at the top, surrounded by dust and darkness, you find nothing at all until you see the small tape recorder tucked between insulation panels. You press play. A voice yours says, I'm inside, but I think I'm too late. I think it's already in the walls. Then static, and in the distance, through the earpiece, you hear it, the sound of someone breathing right behind you. You spin, nothing, but you know what you heard. You always know. The static never stops. It began with another rain-soaked night. You were almost off shift when the call came in. A neighbor had reported a light flickering in the window of a house that had supposedly been abandoned for over 3 years. Unit 12, check on 35 Millstone. Drive, dispatch said. Caller says they saw someone standing in the basement window. No one's lived there since the Conroy incident. You remembered the Conroy case. Everyone in the department remembered the Conroy case. It wasn't just because of the deaths, though those were bad enough. It was because of what the old man had said in his final moments, mumbling in the back of the cruiser as they took him away. They live in the spaces between, under the floor, behind the wires. They watch when the lights flicker. Most of the guys chalked it up to dementia. You weren't so sure. You pulled onto Millstone Drive, a cul-de-sac surrounded by trimmed hedges and too perfect symmetry. The Conroy house stood at the end, draped in overgrowth, the porch half collapsed, vines crawling up the siding like veins on old skin. You parked, radioed in, Unit 12, on scene. Stand by for update. You stepped into the rain, flashlight cutting a silver beam through the darkness. The basement window was small, barely above ground. glass smudged and clouded, but behind it, something moved, a shadow, a flicker. You moved closer. The beam of your flashlight bounced off the glass, revealing the edge of something inside. Was that a face? You crouched, angling your light, but by the time it struck the corner again, it was gone. You circled to the back of the house. The basement door was padlocked. You noted the rust, years old, not recently opened, but something had to be inside. Your breath clouded the air as you made your way to the front porch. You tested the main door unlocked. It groaned open slowly, revealing the stale breath of a home that had been left to rot. Every step echoed through empty rooms. Wallpaper peeled like dead skin. Furniture sat shrouded in old sheets, and yet the floor was clean. No dust, as if someone had walked through recently. You found the basement stairs behind the kitchen narrow, steep, the light switch broken. You descended slowly, each step creaking beneath your boots. At the bottom, the smell hit you, damp wood, mold, and something else. Something coppery, familiar. Blood. You reached the basement floor, sweeping your light across stacked boxes and broken furniture. And then you saw it, a circle drawn in chalk, surrounded by melted candles, their wax hardened into black rivulets. And in the center, a recorder, the same model found in the attic on Myrtle Hollow. You pressed play. The voice wasn't yours this time. It was Conroy's. She thinks I can't hear her, but I can. When the pipes rattle, when the floorboards groan, she whispers through the vents. She says she lives in the basement window. The tape whined, then cut off into static. That's when you noticed the footprints. Bare, small, child-sized, trailing. From the circle to the back corner of the room. You followed them. They ended at a section of wall that didn't match the rest. Cleaner, newer, less dust. You pressed your hand. Against it, it opened. Not like a door, like a mouth. And beyond it, darkness. Cold, thick darkness. You stepped inside. The air was wrong here. Heavier, stiller. The walls were close, wrapped tight around you. The corridor turned, then dropped. A ladder, rusted, descending. You climbed. It brought you to another room. Small, cramped, mattress on the floor, drawings on the walls, crude sketches of eyes, windows, shadows standing behind them. And then you saw the name, scrawled over and over in charcoal. You. You turned, the wall behind you breathed, not moved, breathed. And from the dark, a whisper, you came back. You always come back. You ran, clambered up the ladder, back through the hidden crawlway, back into the basement, back into the world. That felt at least half real. You radioed dispatch with shaking fingers. Unit 12 requesting backup at Millstone. Possible break-in, unknown presence, secure the basement. You didn't wait for a response, because from behind the wall, that static started again, and you realized this was never about the house. It was about the space beneath it. The static never stops. It was just after 3 a.m. when the second call came in. You'd barely returned to your cruiser, barely taken a sip of the lukewarm coffee sitting in the cup holder, when the radio came alive again. Unit 12, respond to 10 to 72, possible 1056. In progress, 17 Birch Hollow. Caller reports hearing a woman crying beneath her floorboards. Repeat, beneath. You didn't move for a moment. Beneath, you'd heard calls like this, before. Delusional, sleep-deprived homeowners who mistake plumbing for whispering, the creak of wood for moaning. But something about this dispatch froze the air in your lungs. Floorboards. Don't cry, you keyed the mic. Unit 12 days, menos 70, Isay's Birch Hollow was a newer development. Plastic siding, neon green lawns, cookie-cutter homes that all seemed too clean, too symmetrical. But number 17 stood out. The porch light was off. The windows were dark. A single lamp glowed faintly from the back of the house. You knocked a man. Opened the door. Shirtless. Pale. Eyes wide and hollow. She's crying again, he whispered. Down there, just like last week. You stepped inside. The house smelled of bleach and sweat. His hands trembled as he gestured toward the living room. It starts right beneath the couch. Same time every night, just past 3. You moved. Slowly the floor creaked with every step. You passed the couch, sweeping your flashlight across the hardwood. No signs of tampering, no air vents, no crawlspace access. You crouched, pressed your ear to the ground. Silence, then a sob, faint, muffled, like someone crying through drywall. You jerked back, heart thudding in your chest. I told you, the man said, voice shaking. She starts there, then moves. As if answering your question, the sound shifted. You heard it now soft dragging, like fingernails across wood, moving from beneath the couch to beneath the hallway. You followed, step by step. You moved with it. It was beneath the floor, pacing, crawling. You reached the far end of the hallway. A linen closet. Nothing out of place until you noticed the panel behind the towels. A square cut into the drywall. You pulled it open. Darkness stared back. A shallow crawl space, barely 3 feet high. Pipes running overhead. Insulation torn. And beneath it, a makeshift blanket course. Dirty, blood-stained, and fingernail marks. Scraped deep into the wooden beams. The crying had stopped. You radioed in. Unit 12. Possible illegal occupancy. Found sign of squatter in subfloor crawl space. Request backup and tech team. The man stood behind you, hands clutching his arms. You. Don't get it. There's no squatter. I've sealed that hatch 5 times. Nailed it shut. Rebuilt the walls. She always comes back. She cries, and then she watches. You asked him who she was. His lips trembled. My wife. You paused. She died last year, overdose, in the bedroom, but she never left. She's still here, I know it. She's watching me from under the house. She wants me to follow her. I hear her whisper my name. You stared at the hatch. No footprints. No signs of recent use. But the blanket was warm. You aimed your flashlight again and crawled inside. The air was thick. You had to move on your elbows, knees scraping against broken insulation. Your light flickered. A hum began in your ears. Not static. Not exactly breathing. Not yours. You reached a turn in the crawl space and saw a hand, small grey fingers, extended toward the corner. The fingernails were cracked and broken, the hand unmoving. You moved closer. It vanished, just gone like dust in water. You turned back, crawling fast, boots thudding, hands slick with sweat. You emerged into the hallway gasping, heart hammering in your chest. The man was gone. You moved through the house, empty. No sign of struggle. His car still outside. Keys on the counter, but no trace of him. You circled back to the crawl space, looked. In again, and there it wasn't. A blanket, neat, folded still, warm, and scrawled into the wood above it. I'm still crying. Won't you come lay down too? You didn't sleep that morning. You didn't turn your radio on for hours, because the static had already started in your head, the kind that comes before the crying. And even now, sometimes, when the floor creaks at night in your own house, you wonder who's beneath. The static never stops. It was supposed to be a welfare check, just a simple 10 to 23, elderly male, no contact for several days, mail piling up, lights off, a neighbor worried. Routine, but nothing's routine. In this job, after 2 a.m., you arrived at the address, 52 Delmore Avenue, a single-story ranch with peeling paint and weeds that clawed up the siding like fingers, desperate to climb. The front door was locked. You peered through the window, saw the back of a recliner. TV static flickered. A bowl of cereal sat untouched. On the armrest, you circled to the rear door. It was unlocked. The house was silent, not quiet, silent. Even the air felt still. You called out, "Police department, Mr. Kessler." No answer. You moved down the hall, past empty rooms. Pictures hung crooked on the walls. Family portraits scratched out, eyes blacked with ink dot. Then you entered the den, dot, and found the body, slumped in the recliner, eyes wide open, skin pale and dry. He'd been dead at least 2 days, but the TV was still on, playing static. You approached. That's when you noticed the radios, 3 of them, lined on the coffee table, all police scanners, all on, all tuned to slightly different frequencies. You heard your own dispatch channel, and another one you didn't recognize. It looped the same phrase. Unit 11, respond. She's still in the house. Unit 11, respond. She's still in the house. Over and over, you turned it off. But the phrase, repeated in your earpiece. You yanked your headset off. Static buzzed from every corner of the room. You checked the 3rd scanner. It was playing a recording. Your voice. "I think she's in the walls. Send backup. I can't find the door. I can't find the tape cut off." The old man's eyes stared past you. You leaned in, whispered, "Who are you listening to?" And you swear. His mouth moved, just barely, and the static on the TVs stopped, only for a second, then resumed louder than before. You reported the body, filed the paperwork, but the radios kept playing in the evidence. Room for hours afterward, they wouldn't turn off. You finally smashed them, but the recording, the one with your voice, it was never found in inventory. But sometimes, while driving at night, you hear yourself whispering on the scanner, "I can't find the door." And that's when you remember you never closed the one behind you. The static never stops. The house on Rosehill Lane wasn't on any regular patrol route. It didn't come up on dispatch often. And you didn't think about it until that night when a young girl called 911 and whispered one sentence, "He's crawling under my bed again." You arrived 10 minutes later. The girl's mother answered the door, frazzled, confused. Her daughter, she said, had been having dreams for weeks, bad ones, about something under the floor. Tonight, she'd woken up screaming, claimed she could hear someone breathing beneath the carpet. You stepped into the room, pink walls, teddy bears, books stacked neatly. One lamp glowed warm yellow in the corner. The girl sat on the bed, arms around her knees, eyes locked on the floor, not crying, just staring. You knelt beside her. "What did you hear?" You asked. She didn't blink. "He drags his fingers along the boards," she said, "and he says he's sorry, but he never leaves." You asked if she had seen his face. She shook her head. "He's only a voice now." The mother told you that house had a crawl space, access in the hallway closet. You pulled it open, wooden hatch, padlocked but rusted through. The moment you lifted the door, you smelled it earth, sweat, rot. You shined your light inside, dirt floor, narrow beams, pipes overhead, and something moved. Just a flicker. You radioed for backup, then dropped down, crawling on hands and knees. The light danced across the ground, catching on old wrappers, tools, bits of insulation, and then a mattress, laid out in the middle of the space. Blankets rumpled, a radio beside it, still playing. You crawled closer, static, then a voice, yours whispering, choked. Why can't I get out? You dropped the flashlight. The beam spun wildly, catching on something in the corner, a drawing carved into the wood with fingernails. A face, just eyes, wide and staring. Beside it, scrawled in jagged letters, I live where the house forgets. Something brushed your leg. You turned, nothing there, but the static on the radio shifted. You heard breathing, slow, wet, close. You backed out fast, pulled yourself into the hallway, heart hammering. You slammed the hatch and nailed it shut. The girl stood nearby, watching. He doesn't like the light, she said. You asked her what she meant, but she just smiled and whispered, the crawl space belongs to him. You filed the report. You left out the radio. You told yourself it was a squatter, a trick of acoustics, stress. But that night, you heard dragging beneath your own floor, and the voice on your scanner whispered, I'm sorry, I'm still under here. The static never stops. You knew Officer Bray for 5 years, a quiet guy, dependable, never the type to rattle easily. So when his final call came in, full of static, clipped, almost unintelligibly were the first one on scene. He'd been dispatched to a cabin outside county lines. Noise, complaints, woman screaming, no neighbors for a mile in any direction. When you arrived, his cruiser was there, driver's side door open, radio still humming. The house was dark. You called his name, no answer. You drew your flashlight, stepped. Inside, the air was thick, heavy, dust floated like ash. No sign of struggle. And then you saw it, his body cam placed neatly on a side table. Still recording. You pressed play. The footage showed him knocking on the door, entering, announcing himself. And then he paused. Dispatch. I think there's someone in the crawl space. I can hear scratching. You fast dash forwarded. He finds the hatch. Opens. It dubbed then, static, loud, disorienting. And then his own voice, repeating. Unit 9, 10 to 76. I'm still inside. But it's not a house. It's a maze. It goes down, then silence. The video ends. You checked the crawl space. Empty, except for a set of footprints in the dust, leading into the darkness and not coming back out. You called it in, filed the report. They searched the area for days. They never found Bray. But 3 nights later, your cruiser radio crackled to life, and you heard him whispering, still inside, still inside. You didn't respond, because if you did, you might hear your own voice. Next, the static never stops. It was supposed to be a routine traffic stop. You were on night patrol, highway duty, just after 1 a.m. The rain had stopped for once, but the roads were still slick with leftover sheen. Your headlights sliced through the dark like blades. That's When you saw it, a black sedan. No plates. Parked on the shoulder near mile marker 63. Hazard lights blinking. No movement inside. You pulled over, radioed in. Unit 12, I've got an abandoned vehicle. Checking it out now. The door was unlocked. Inside, the car was cold. The engine dead. Dashboard covered in a thin layer of dust, like it had been sitting there for days, but the blinkers were still on, still flashing. You stepped back, walked around. That's when you saw the message written on the back windshield in the fog. Help me. You called for backup, then opened the trunk. Empty, except for a jacket. Police issue. The tag read, R. Salazar, Unit 19. Your pulse spiked. Salazar had been missing for 2 weeks. Last seen on this same highway. You checked the back seat, and there it was, his radio still on, still crackling. You picked it up. Your own voice came through, not from your mic but from his. Unit 12. Something's in the car. I can't get out. The doors won't silence. Then breathing, right behind you. You spun, nothing. You turned back to the radio. It was off, but the car was different now. The rear-view mirror had fogged, and in the condensation, fresh finger streaks. Someone had drawn a face. You backed out, called in again. They searched the woods. Nothing, no prints, no signs of Salazar. The car was towed, but 3 nights later, the same sedan showed up again, different. Place, same highway, blinkers on, your name written on the back glass, and a single voice over the scanner. Please, I'm still in the back seat. You never drive alone anymore, but sometimes when you check the mirror, you see the outline of someone sitting behind you, breathing, watching, waiting. The static never stops. You weren't dispatched, you just heard the address, over and over, through the radio. 912 Alder Street, 912 Alder Street, 912 Alder Street. No unit called it in, no voice identified, just that address, repeated again and again. You looked it up, abandoned, condemned. After a fire 5 years ago, but the signal kept coming. So you drove, just to clear your mind, just to see. You found the house at the edge of town. Blackened siding, roof caved in, windows busted out, the door hanging by a single hinge. You stepped out of your cruiser. The address was carved into the mailbox, and then the radio clicked again. 12. You're here. You made it. You didn't answer. You walked toward the house. The porch gave under your weight. Inside, soot coated everything. The scent of burned wood still lingered. A staircase led upward, half gone. Floorboards warped and cracked. Then dash footsteps, upstairs. You called out. No response. Just the sound of something dragging. You stepped deeper into the house. Your radio spoke again. Don't look upstairs. You'll see what I saw. But you couldn't stop. You climbed. Every step creaked. The air grew colder at the top, a hallway. Charred portraits melted into the walls. And at the far end a closed door. You opened it. Inside. Nothing, just an old radio on the floor, still warm. You picked it up. Your voice echoed from it. Recorded earlier that night. I don't want to go in. I know what's waiting. Then static. You turned. The hallway was gone, replaced by stairs, leading down. But the air wasn't from this house. It was deeper, earthier. You descended, each level darker than the last, until you reached a single wooden chair in a dirt room. A tape recorder sat. On it, you pressed play. I've been here before, your voice said. This is where it starts, where it ends. Then the house isn't calling you, it's remembering you. You ran, climbed out into the night, but your cruiser was gone, and in its place, another chair and another tape you never told anyone. But now, every time dispatch says an address, you wait, because someday it'll be 912 Alder Street again, and this time you might not come back. The static never stops. You didn't think much of it at first. Old scanners picking up ghost channels, dead frequencies, weird interference. It happens. Sometimes it's just weather or stray signals. But this one didn't feel like a glitch. You were reorganizing. The evidence locker that night. A quiet shift. Rain hitting the windows like tiny pebbles tossed from the dark. No calls in hours. You liked those nights, Swen stretched, and you could feel the rhythm of your own breathing. But something was off. The hum of the lights, too steady, the shadows, just a bit too still. The kind of quiet that pushes in around you like the world's holding its breath. You flipped through some old equipment in the back room, found a stack of radios in a cardboard box, some cracked, some dusty, all labeled decommissioned. But one still had a battery, and it was on. The screen flickered .ch7, just that. No time code, no audio. You adjusted the knob, static buzzed. Then silence, then something else. A voice, not yours, not anyone from dispatch. A slow, careful whisper. I see you in the dark. You paused, raised it to your ear. The voice came again, this time more distant, as if echoing through the wires. You don't remember me yet, but I never left. You clicked it off, stared at the silent plastic shell in your palm. The room was colder now. You didn't imagine that. You could see your breath. A soft fog in the locker's yellow light. And then your duty radio clicked on. Unit 12. Possible trespasser at 55 Wexley Drive. Caller states someone's talking through their baby monitor. Says they keep hearing a man counting backwards from 30. You responded, routine tone. 10 to 76. En route. But your pulse was already tightening. In your neck, because Wexley Drive. That house had been empty for months. You drove through fog-thick streets, headlights slicing mist. The houses looked the same, windows like watching eyes. No porch lights, no signs of life. You parked, walked to the front door. It creaked open before you could knock. Inside, the air was stale, the kind of stale that comes from boarded windows and forgotten furniture. You clicked on your flashlight. Dust hung like snowfall, but then dash movement down the hall. A red light blinked in a room to the left. You followed it. A nursery, empty crib, baby monitor on the floor. Still on, the red light pulsed like a heartbeat. You picked it up. It clicked. 24, 23, 22. A voice, mail.com, unhurried. You looked around. No sign of forced entry. No signs of squatters. You stepped back. Into the hallway. Your earpiece buzzed again. You shouldn't have come here. You froze. The baby monitor repeated the countdown. 15, 14, and in the distance, behind you, a thud like something dropping onto the floor upstairs. You turned, silence, then another sound, scraping, long as if something was being dragged. You moved carefully toward the stairs. Every step a creak, upstairs. The hallway stretched into shadow. One door just barely ajar at the far end you approached. The countdown reached 3, 2, 2, 1, 2. Silence then. A scream, short, ragged, cut off fast. You kicked the door open. The room was empty except the walls, covered floor to ceiling in numbers, all hand-written dot, counting down from 100,000 at the bottom. Corner fresh ink. The next number was scratched in 1, and just beneath it, in red, he finishes counting when you arrive. You turned to leave. Fast your radio buzzed again. But now it wasn't dispatched. It was the same voice from before. Channel 7 always remembers. You reached the stairs, but the steps had changed. No wood, no railing, only stone descending. DU blinked, and the hallway was back. Old carpet, wooden frame, the nursery to the left, but your radio still whispered, "Come back." You got out. You filed the call. But when the tech team arrived the next morning, there was no writing, no baby monitor, no numbers on the wall, only dust and one small handprint. On the inside of the front door, too small to be an adult, too high to belong to a child. You checked the logs. There was no 911 call from Wexley Drive. Not that night, not ever, but later. When you checked your own scanner again, the channel labeled 7 wasn't there anymore, but it still speaks. Sometimes when you're driving alone, sometimes while you're shaving and the radio clicks on, sometimes when you dream and can't tell what's sleep and what isn't, it whispers, "One thing now. Only one. You're almost at the end. But you don't know what the end is. Not yet. And the static never stops. You didn't notice it the first time. Too much going on. Too much noise. Calls coming in, back to back. A wreck on the East Bypass. A drunk driver by the marina. A domestic on Granger Road that nearly turned into a hostage situation. But later, when things calmed, when the lights in the squad room dimmed, and your thoughts turned inward, you remembered her voice. Not dispatch, not the usual calm, clipped tone of the night operator. A woman, soft-spoken, whispery, almost regretful. It wasn't on any of the official tapes, not in the logs, but you'd heard it. A whisper that slipped through the static in your ear. Don't go inside. That night, you responded to 112 Parson Way, a noise complaint. You didn't want to go. You'd had a bad feeling before you even left the precinct. But the call came in like any other, except the time stamp. 3:03 a.m. and the frequency. It wasn't from dispatch. It was from Channel 0. You didn't know there was a Channel 0, but your radio crackled alive, the voice clear as your own breath. Unit 12, respond to 112, Parson Way. Do not enter the basement. You froze, said nothing, checked your mic. It was off. You turned it on. Dispatch. Repeat that last transmission. Only silence. Then the usual channel clicked in. Unit 12, confirm location update. 112, Parson Way, noise disturbance. The voice was different, normal, but your stomach twisted. You arrived minutes later. A run-down home, peeling paint, no car in the driveway. A porch light swinging in the wind, casting long, twitching shadows over the door. The door was ajar. You stepped inside, announced yourself. Silence answered. The house was empty. You moved room to room. Nothing but old furniture and the smell of rotting wood, and then you found it. The stairs leading down basement. Your hand hovered over your radio. Dispatch. I've got a basement here. Proceeding to check. You descended. Each step groaned beneath your boots. The air grew colder, damp, The beam of your flashlight caught stone walls, stained floor, mold in the corners. And then you saw her, a woman standing no dash, floating just above the ground, her back turned, her hair long, black. Still, you raised your voice. "Ma'am, police, are you okay?" She didn't move. You took a step closer. Her feet didn't touch the ground, and there was no shadow. You tried to call for backup, but the radio didn't work. Only static. Then her voice came through. The static, not through the air, through the radio. "I told you not to come here." The light flickered. She turned, but where her face should have been. Only skin, no eyes, no mouth. Just flesh stretched tight over bone, and then movement behind. Her dot 100 hands, pale, writhing, reaching dot from the walls. You turned, ran, dot stumbled. Up the stairs, burst into the night. You don't remember driving back. You don't remember turning off the engine. But when you came to, your radio was on, and channel 0 was gone, replaced by something else. An open channel, just static, and buried deep beneath it. Breathing, you brought it up with the sergeant. The next day, he brushed it off. "Radio quirks," he said. "Old towers, solar flares." But you knew the truth, because later, when you checked the dispatch recordings from the night before, there was a gap, 3 minutes, gone, and someone had written a note in the logbook. Red pen, shaky, handwriting. "Do not answer channel 0. No. One knew who wrote it. No one claimed to have seen it, but it's still there, and sometimes, late at night, when your earpiece hisses, just right you hear her. Soft, regretful. You were supposed to stay away, and the static never stops. They call it Widow's Bridge. Locals don't say the name out loud. Truckers avoid it even if it adds 20 minutes to their haul. You heard the rumors when you joined the force. An old overpass out on Highway 33. 2 lanes, no shoulders. Number. Streetlights. And too many wrecks. Too many drivers who said the same thing before they crashed. She stepped into the road. That night, you were sent out to check on a vehicle stalled mid-bridge. No movement, no response from the driver. You took the call because no one else wanted to. As you approached, you noticed it was silent. Not quiet, silent. No insects, no breeze, just dead air. The cruiser's headlights lit up the structure. Steel beams rusted and flaking. Concrete cracked railings twisted. A sedan sat sideways in the middle. Driver door open, headlights off. You stepped out. The bridge groaned under your weight. The mist hung low, barely above the surface of the river. Cold, dense. You moved toward the car. No one inside, but in the back seat, a wedding dress, perfectly laid out, clean, untouched by age or dirt, and beside it, a radio dot, not a car radio, a dispatch scanner. You picked it up, and it crackled to life. Unit 12, slowed down. She's still in front of you. You spun dot, nothing, only mist, only the river. You stepped to the edge, looked down and saw the reflection. Not yours dot hers, a woman in white, standing in the water, looking. Up no face, only a veil. You blinked gone, but your foot slipped. You fell forward, just caught the railing in time. Your flashlight dropped, rolled into the mist. Then a hand, cold, bone-thin, grabbed your ankle. You kicked, fell backwards, scrambled, the hand receded. You radioed in, need backup, possible 10 to 56. Unidentified subject on scene. They responded, but not in a voice you recognized. It's too late. You saw her. You left the bridge, but in your mirror, she stood on the road, watching. And later, when you reviewed your dashcam footage, the moment you passed mile marker 87, the screen froze, and her face filled the frame. Eyes black, mouth wide, endless. You don't drive Highway 33 anymore, but she still follows, in reflections, in puddles, and when your radio hisses for no reason, you hear her veil brushing stone, and the static never stops. It was supposed to be an overnight assignment. Security detail at an old state building slated for demolition. A formality, no threat, just a presence. One night, you and Officer Graff. The place had once been an administrative office for the psychiatric ward, long since shut down. Dusty files, broken windows, graffiti. You arrived just past dusk. The sun dipped behind clouds, and the building cast long shadows across the pavement inside. Everything smelled like mold and bleach. The main hallway was long, echoed with each footstep. You checked in. Graff took the north wing. You took the south at the end of your wing room, 201. The plaque was missing, but something about the door gave you pause, scuffed, dented, scratched from the inside. You jotted a note, continued the patrol. Hours passed, then Graff called over the radio. Hey, have you been hearing something weird? You paused. Like what? He hesitated, breathing through the walls. You were about to respond when your own radio crackled. New voice, not Graff, not dispatch. Don't let it out again. You asked him to repeat. Only static. You made your way back to the entrance. Graff wasn't there. You checked the north wing. Empty. No signs. Then you heard it. Thump, 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 from the south hallway. Room 201, the door was open. Just slightly, you moved toward it. Hand on your weapon. The air got colder with every step. Inside, pitch dark. You clicked your flashlight. On, Graff's cap on the floor and blood. Drag marks leading to a closet. You opened it. Nothing, only a wall of mirrors, dozens of them, all angled differently, and in each reflection, your face, except one, showed a mouthless man in your uniform, watching behind you. You turned, nothing. The mirror shattered, your radio screamed. Then silence. You found Graff in the stairwell hours later, catatonic, eyes wide, mouth open. But no sound, just static from his radio. When he came to, he couldn't remember a thing, but he wrote one sentence over and over for 3 days. 201 was never locked. You burned the report, but sometimes your mirror fogs up at home, and you see room 201 written in the mist, and the static never stops. It started with a late-night call from an old-timer on the force. Retired, lived out near the woods, never spoke much, but his voice that night was tight like someone gripping the edge of a memory. Have you heard the signal? He asked. You didn't know what he meant, but he gave you coordinates, said you'd hear it too, and then he hung up. You looked up the location, an old repeater station, long deactivated, burned out in a lightning storm 5 years ago. Still, curiosity you went. Deep woods, gravel road turning to dirt, dirt turning to nothing. You left your cruiser at the tree line and walked. The repeater tower stood crooked in the fog, metal warped, rust bleeding into the soil, and beneath it a concrete shack, door slightly ajar. You entered, dust, rot, old electronics, and a console still lit. One red light blinking slowly. The screen read, Channel -273, you frowned. That wasn't possible. You turned the dial. White noise. Then a child's voice. Please, it's so cold. You froze. The signal grew stronger. They never stopped screaming. Not once. You tried to respond. But the mic didn't work. The voice changed. Older now, this was a shelter. They said we'd be safe. Another voice. They locked us in. You backed away. The air shifted, and the radio let out a high-pitched whine. Your nose bled. The walls vibrated. Then, silence. The screen went black. You turned. On the inside of the door, written in smudged ink, it broadcasts pain. You left, but the signal followed you. Every few nights, your squad radio flickers, and you hear it again. The sound of dozens whispering at once, asking for someone who never arrived. You keep the volume low now, but even turned off, the speaker vibrates, and the static never stops. You'd seen him before. Black uniform, no badge number, pale face, sunglasses at night. No one knew his name, but he was always there when things went sideways. The fire on 9th Street. The car submerged under Lake Hollow. The boy missing from the daycare, always standing off to the side, never speaking, watching. You thought he was a state investigator until you asked, and they said no one was sent. You checked rosters, no match. You checked footage, every time, camera glitches, corrupted frames, but always a blur shaped like him. One night, a rookie came to you, shaking. I talked to him, he said. He knew my name. You asked who. He pointed out the window. There he was, by your cruiser. You stepped outside. Gone no. Tracks only a single note under your windshield wiper, scrawled in perfect block letters. You're next to forget. You brought it inside. Showed you Lieutenant. He said it wasn't there. Only a blank slip of paper. You had it tested. No ink, no residue. But that night, your body cam flickered, and he appeared again in the mirror behind you, whispering words your mic didn't catch. You turned only static. He's been following you since, only ever showing up when no one else is looking. A cop without a precinct. And sometimes, when you check your ID in your wallet, it isn't your name anymore, it's his, and the static never stops. Found in an attic during a welfare check, VHS, tape, unmarked, just sitting there on top of an old VCR in a dusty room filled with dolls. You took it in as evidence. Later, in the squad break room, you watched it. Black and white footage, timecode flickering. A room. One chair. A girl sits there, hair in her face, not moving. Seconds. Past minutes. Then she lifts her head, stares into the camera, mouths something. You rewind. Can't quite make it out. You slow it down. Frame by frame. Let me out. You pause. It and the phone rings. But not yours. The one on the wall behind. You, it hasn't worked in years. You pick it up, only static. Then her voice. You watched too long. The TV glitches. The image changes. Now it's your squad room, your desk, your jacket, and behind it, her glows to the screen. Now you hit eject. The tape is gone. The slot is empty. But she still appears sometimes, in reflections, in monitor glare. And when you wake up, sometimes your television is on, and the channel is set to 0 o'clock, and the static never stops. It was the night you forgot to log out. You were sitting in the dispatch office, covering for someone. just for an hour. The mic was warm, the screens flickering, rain drumming the roof. Nothing major came through. You sipped coffee, then an open line from Unit 9. But Unit 9 had been off duty for days. Still, the call came through. Dispatch, I'm inside. Something's not right. You blinked, checked GPS, no signal. Unit 9, confirm location. Silence. Then, it's not empty. Static again. You tried to patch through backup, but all channels were looping the same phrase. Dispatch, are you still there? Over and over, from different units that didn't exist. Some called from streets that had been demolished a decade ago. Some gave badge numbers too high to be real. One called from your home address. Dispatch, can you hear me? Something's in the walls. You pulled the headset off. The room was colder now. You turned off the console, left it for the techs. But the headset stayed warm, still vibrating, still buzzing. And that night, you dreamt in code, awoke to a voice whispering coordinates into your ear. And when you checked the radio in your cruiser, there was an open mic, but it wasn't yours. And the voice on the other end knew your name. And the static never stops. It started at 2:13 a.m. You remember the exact time because you were staring at the digital clock on your cruiser's dash, waiting for anything to happen. That strange pocket of dead air that sometimes wraps around the station like a shroud, not quiet in a peaceful way, quiet in a wrong way. You were parked outside the old municipal courthouse, a relic long since condemned. They hadn't torn it down because the funds were always pending, so it sat there, towering, empty, a blackened skeleton of bureaucratic memory. Your radio clicked once, then again. Unit 12, do you copy? You reached for the mic. 12 here, go ahead. No answer, just the familiar low hum of the radio. You turned the volume knob slightly just, in case, and that's when you heard it. Unit 12, do you hear me? But it wasn't dispatched. The voice was deeper, tired, worn down like river stones. After too many storms, you froze. Let the mic hang. The voice continued, soft, breathy. You won't remember this call until you've lived through it. The hairs on your arms stood up. You checked the channel. It was your standard frequency. No crosstalk, no misfires. You keyed the mic. Identify yourself. Static. Then, don't go into the courthouse. The line went dead. You stepped out of the cruiser. The courthouse loomed above you like a tombstone. Your boots echoed on the broken concrete as you approached. The door should have been chained shut. It wasn't. The lock hung loose, broken from the inside. You pushed through. The air inside was thick. Dust, paper, rot. The smell of cold bricks and forgotten ink. Your flashlight passed over old file cabinets, wall plaques, smeared portraits. And then, from the far side of the lobby, a dim green glow. Emergency exit sign blinkering, but under it, a desk phone ringing. You didn't even realize you were moving toward it until your hand was already on the receiver. You lifted it slowly. You were warned. The voice on the other end wasn't a recording. It was live, and it was yours. Your voice whispering, breathing, but older, rougher. You dropped the phone. It didn't hit the ground. It didn't hit the ground. It just hung there, mid-dash air, swinging you backed away. And that's when the temperature dropped. You saw your breath, heard footsteps above you, a slow, dragging gait. Then a voice over your shoulder. We told you not to come here yet. You spun around, no one, but your flashlight flickered just once. And in that moment, The entire lobby was full of figures, shadows of officers, frozen eyes blacked out, badges missing. Every single one of them looked like you. You blinked, gone. Your radio crackled. Unit 12. Do you copy? This time it was dispatch, but their signal was faint, warped, like it was bouncing through time. You ran back outside. The air was different. Now, no streetlights, no cruiser, no buildings across the street. Only darkness and fog, thick as wool. You tried the radio again. No response. The courthouse loomed behind you and changed. You stepped forward and the world blinked just for a second. And then you were back, same spot. But now the courthouse doors were boarded again, as if they'd never been touched. And on your dashcam, a new file had appeared. You hadn't activated it, but the timestamp said February 3rd, 2032 to 2:13 a.m. You checked your watch. It was February 2nd, one day ahead, a file from the future. You played it. It showed you, standing in front of the courthouse, speaking into the radio, repeating one phrase over and over again. Don't let me go in there. You don't sleep much now. You keep a recorder in your locker, because sometimes, when you dream, you speak in full sentences, and when you play the tapes back, you hear yourself giving orders from days that haven't happened yet, and the static never stops. It wasn't supposed to be your call. Dispatch had assigned it to Unit 14, but something glitched. Maybe the system was down. Maybe it was fate and the call rerouted to you. 10 to 76. Suspicious activity. Abandoned gas station. You sighed. It was just off County Road 17. A known dead zone. That old Chevron hadn't been open since the mid-90s. Boarded up. Tag-covered pumps. Locals swore it was haunted, but locals swear about a lot of things. You drove out anyway, and as you got closer, the static began. First, a soft hum under the radio, then a voice. Unit 12, welcome back. You didn't recognize it. Mail.2com, like someone who'd been waiting. You tried to respond. No one answered. The closer you got, the worse the static grew. Like a pressure building in your ears. You pulled into the lot. Dark. Not just black. As if the gas station swallowed light. Your cruiser headlights barely pierced the edge of the lot. The building stood in the distance like a forgotten tooth. Your dash lights flickered, then died. The engine choked, then went silent. You were alone. You stepped out. Flashlight on, boots, crunching glass. You approached the station. The pumps stood, twisted. One nozzle hung low, slowly dripping a viscous, black fluid that didn't smell like gasoline. The doors were unlocked. You pushed them open. The bell above the entrance chimed, but it sounded wrong. Slower, reversed. Inside the aisles were empty, racks tilted. The refrigeration cases had long since grown mossy. You stepped behind the counter, a PAPHONE. Dusty. Receiver hanging. It rang once, twice. You answered, hello. Nothing. Then faintly, you're early again. The line went dead. Put the phone down and noticed the security monitor behind the register. Blinked to life. Black and white feed, showing the parking lot, your cruiser, but in the frame. Someone was sitting in your front seat. You zoomed in. It was you, head turned, staring directly at the camera. You turned to look out the window. Your cruiser was empty. You looked back at the monitor. Still, you now, smiling. The mouth stretched wide. Your radio hissed, and a new voice came through. Don't look at the mirror. But there were no mirrors, except the one in the restroom. Behind you, you moved without thinking. Opened the door, the light buzzed overhead. The mirror above the sink was cracked lines, like veins running across its surface. You looked up. It wasn't your face. It was a version of you older. Eyes sunken, mouth sewn shut, and behind your reflection, a shadow. You turned around, nothing. You looked back. Now the mirror showed the empty station, but you weren't in it anymore. Only shelves, and that shadow growing taller. You stepped back. The light exploded. Glass rained around you. The mirror was gone. Only a black hole in the wall, and inside it, your voice whispered back, "We're all still here." You ran. The front doors slammed shut behind you. Your radio screamed, "Unit 12. What's your status?" It was dispatch.normal. You bolted for the cruiser. The headlights blinked on. The engine turned. You reversed out fast. Gravel flying. Only when you were back on the main road did the signal normalize. You tried to explain no. One filed a report. No one believed you, but the next morning you found a receipt tucked into your patrol vest. It was dated 1996. Printed on it, "Thank you, officer. Come again." And the static never stops. You were never supposed to patrol Sector 9. It was decommissioned years ago, a stretch of desert highway that twisted between forgotten oil fields and dry riverbeds. The old refineries had gone silent in '87, the guard towers dismantled, and most of the county's maps didn't even list it anymore. But sometimes, signals still came from there. Dispatch claimed it was a glitch. Ghost frequencies, weather distortion, solar interference. You didn't buy it, because one night a call came through. Unit 19, responding to Scream Sector 9, near mile marker 63. You were Unit 12, but no one else was on duty. You asked dispatch, they said. We didn't send that call. So you drove out anyway. The road narrowed. Asphalt cracked like broken bone. Dust swirled. No lights, no markers, just the steady hum of the engine and the whisper of the wind over the dry plains. Then your GPS blinked out. Then your clock reset to 0 o'clock. Then the radio turned itself on. A man's voice, not static, clear, sharp. "Do you remember what you did here?" You didn't answer. You slowed the cruiser. Mile marker 63 was bent in half, shot up, burned beyond it. A dirt access road trailed off toward a cluster of ruined cement blocks, rusted fences, the shell of a communications outpost. You stepped out and the heat vanished, like stepping into a different season. The ground was cool, the air thick. You approached the outpost. Its front door was half open, swinging gently inside. Dust covered everything, footprints dash small, burr tracked along the floor and vanished into a stairwell that led underground. You should have called it in. You should have left, but you didn't. You descended, one step, then another. The stairs groaned, and at the bottom, a hallway, lined with old equipment. Most of it was broken, except for one console, still blinking, a red light. A voice began to hum through a speaker overhead. "We are not memories. We are trapped moments." You scanned the room. Your flashlight beam passed over filing cabinets, handcuffs, a cracked interrogation table, and then a photo of you. You in uniform, but not the one you wore now. An older badge, a different nameplate. You turned it over. The back read, recovered. 1983. Your stomach flipped. You weren't even born then. The lights above flickered. The hallway behind you now showed shadows, moving, but no sound. You backed into the room again and saw, scratched onto the wall behind the console, "Time is a room you never left." The voice returned. You asked to forget, but we remember you. You ran back up the stairs, only now it took longer. 5 steps became 10.10, became 20. The stairwell warped, and just when panic overtook you, you emerged back into open desert. Your cruiser was gone. Your watch read to 47 a.m. You walked the road until sunrise, and when you returned to the station, they asked where you'd been. You said, Sector 9. But they told you there was no such place. You checked the roster, no mention of Unit 19, no records. But when you changed out of your uniform, you noticed a patch of dried dust on your boots, desert dust, and in your locker a photograph you didn't put there. It was you, standing at the entrance of the outpost, looking back and smiling, and the static never stops. You don't remember how the shift began. That should have been the first red flag. You just remember sitting in the cruiser, engine humming, lights from the dashboard painting your arms in green and blue. It was quiet. That too should have been suspicious. No dispatch chatter, no other units, no sirens in the distance. Just a strange, cocooning silence. The kind of silence that feels less like absence and more like expectation. You were staring out the windshield at nothing in particular when your MDT screen flickered. Just once, then again, then a call appeared. 10 to 50. Possible injury, originating caller, unknown location, 1487 Green Hollow Apartments. Unit 3A YOU frowned. There was no Unit 3A in that complex, you were sure. You'd been there before, too many times. Domestic calls, noise complaints, narcotics busts. You could draw the floor plans from memory. Units A through D on each floor. 3 stories, but no Unit 3A still. It pinged your route, and the time stamp was current. You clicked accept. The cruiser began rolling before you even realized you'd shifted into gear. Green Hollow was just outside town limits. Technically not your jurisdiction, but you responded anyway. Everyone did. It was unofficial. The county lines blurred. The residents didn't care who wore what badge. They just wanted someone to come when they called. You turned off the main road, following the cracked lane that led to the aging apartment block. Pale yellow brick, peeling railings, broken light fixtures. The place looked like it was held together by damp air and bad luck. And tonight, it felt different. Every window was dark, not one porch light, no flickers from TV screens, no sounds, just the hush of thick fog rolling low over the lot, hugging the ground like it was afraid to rise too high. You parked beneath a broken street lamp. It flickered twice, then went out. Your radio remained silent. Your chest felt heavy, like the air was pressing down from the inside. You stepped out, boots crunching gravel, the chill creeping into your sleeves. No one was outside, no drunk neighbor to greet you, no flicker of blinds, not even the usual dog that barked from the 3rd floor. Balcony. You climbed the steps. 1st floor. 2nd. The hallway stretched before you, carpet stained and soft under your feet. Doors past. 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D. 3rd floor. 3A was supposed to be the corner unit, but tonight, a new door stood between 3B and 3C. There was no apartment number, no doorbell, just a plain black door. New wood, no, where like it hadn't existed long enough to age. You reached out and stopped. Your fingers tingled before they touched the surface, like static, like memory. You knocked. The sound was absorbed. No echo, as if the door led into wool. You waited, nothing. You turned the knob. It moved smoothly, and the door opened into blackness. Not darkness, blackness, as if the space beyond the threshold rejected light. You clicked on your flashlight. Its beam hit the floor, old hardwood, dust, dash-free. To clean the light only traveled a few feet. You stepped inside, and the door shut behind you. Asterisk. The door shut behind you without a sound. You didn't turn to check. Didn't need to. You already felt it. The same way you feel a drop in temperature or the air pressure shift before a storm. This space didn't want to be exited. Not yet. You scanned your light across the small entryway. The walls were painted beige, but the color looked wrong. A tone you couldn't place. Not yellow, not white, not gray. Something that felt like it had been mixed, using memories instead of pigments. The layout was familiar. Small hallway, kitchenette on the right, living space ahead. You stepped slowly, the creak of your boots swallowed by the thick air. There was no dust, no smell, not even the scent of paint or wood or mildew. Just nothing, except the feeling, the oppressive sense that you weren't alone and hadn't been since the moment you accepted the call. You moved toward the living room. A beige couch, 2 armchairs, a glass coffee table with no fingerprints, a TV old model, no cables attached, facing the seating area. The screen blinked on. No power cord, no remote, no sound, just an image. Your face. Not now, not today, but you, younger, rookie year haircut, thinner face. No lines under the eyes. You were speaking, but the screen made no sound. Behind you on the TV was the same apartment, same furniture, same lights. And then another version of you stepped into the frame, older, your current self, watching yourself on the screen, just like now and then. Another version of you appeared, but this one wasn't alive. Your body pale, rigid, mouth slightly parted, empty eyes staring upward. All 3 of you in the same space on that flickering screen. You dropped your flashlight. It rolled under the couch. The screen blinked off. You exhaled, and the room exhaled back. You reached down to retrieve the light, and noticed something strange beneath the sofa. A phone, old rotary style, yellowed plastic, wired to nothing. It rang. The receiver vibrated, slightly with each shrill buzz. You lifted it. Your own voice, crisp, clear. Unit 12. This is your last loop. You froze. You whispered, "Who is this?" The last version of you that still believed it was a call. You felt your grip loosen. The receiver fell, and yet the voice continued, now all around you. This apartment doesn't exist. It never did. But you keep coming back. Why? You didn't have an answer. You only had the static rising in your ears like a flood. You turned toward the kitchen. A flickering light buzzed overhead. The fridge was humming, even though it wasn't plugged in. You opened it. Inside, a photograph. You and a woman. She looked familiar but distant. Like a dream you only remember when you smell rain on concrete. You were holding hands, both of you in uniform. Behind you, the green hollow complex. The photograph was dated March 19th, 2004. You did the math. That was 21 years ago. You weren't even Assigned to this city then, you barely had your badge. You flipped the photo over. 3 words were etched in shaky black ink. We're still here. Asterisk, you stepped back into the living room. The photograph still in your hand. And now, the lights had changed. What once seemed like gentle yellow bulbs were now white-hot overhead beams, humming, pulsing like veins in a temple. The shadows in the corners of the room twitched, moved, breathed, something. In the hallway shuffled behind you. You turned fast. Nothing except a faint outline at the end of the corridor. A doorway you hadn't noticed before. Too narrow, too low. Not built for someone your height. It was cracked open, just barely. You approached it, drawn more by dread than curiosity. The door creaked open the rest of the way when you touched it. Beyond, its stairs leading down. But you were on the top floor. There should be nothing below you but insulation and roof support beams. Still, the staircase descended, straight, narrow, wooden steps without banister or handrail, as if made for one thing, going down. You took the first step. The floor above you vanished behind the dark. Only forward now. The air grew warmer with each step, then humid, then wet. By the time you reached the landing, you felt sweat behind your ears. The hallway beyond was lined with mirrors, dozens of them, all mismatched antique, cracked, modern, tinted. They all showed you but different versions. In one, your skin was burned on. In another, your uniform soaked in blood. In yet another, you were smiling, but your eyes were missing. And in all of them, you were standing in the apartment behind you, alone, frozen, watching yourself descend. One mirror stood at the far end of the hall. Full length, clean, unbroken. You stepped closer and your reflection blinked once, twice, then lifted its hand before. You did it, pointed to the left. You followed its motion, and there, on the wall beside you, a door shaped like a maintenance hatch. You hadn't noticed it until now. You opened it and found a stairwell leading back up, but now the walls were lined with photographs, all of them of you. Each time you'd visited this building, each loop, each forgotten call, each time you'd reset the world and tried again. And above the last frame, this version will break. You were falling. That was the only sensation left. Not down, not really. Just away from walls, from time, from architecture and identity and flaws that made sense. Colors flashed around you, pale greens, hospital whites, the sterile blue of trauma rooms. Then reed, then violet, then black. You landed hard on linoleum. Pain shot up your side. You groaned, sat up, and realized you were inside a 911 dispatch center. But the room was empty. No operators, no O-screens, just hundreds of ringing phones. Rotary, corded, wireless, each. One blinking in sync, as if pulsing to a heart buried deep beneath the building. You moved through the aisles. They called out to you in different voices. Some begged, some screamed, some whispered memories you hadn't spoken aloud in years. One said your name, your full name, followed by, "We're still trying to reach you. Pick up." You did. The voice on the other end wasn't yours this time. It was your old partner's, the one who'd died in that warehouse standoff 6 years ago. They buried us in the call logs. You tried to speak. The phone dissolved in your hand. You turned, and the dispatch center was gone. Now you stood inside an evidence locker, box after box labeled with your badge number. Cases unsolved. Calls dropped. Units lost. Every single one of them tagged with final transmission. Apartment 3A. You opened one box. Inside. A recorder. You pressed play and heard your voice, but from a moment that hadn't happened yet. This time, I'll break through. You backed away. The shelves collapsed behind you like dominoes. The space folded in on itself. You fell again. But this time, you landed on concrete. The smell of mold. You were back in the original hallway of the apartment. But this time, someone was standing there. A silhouette, tall. UNMOVING. Face. Shrouded in static, not obscured. Literally made of radio noise. You called out, "Who are you?" It replied. The first call you never answered. You reached for your sidearm, gone. Your radio melted to your vest. You stepped forward. It stepped back, but every time it moved, the walls of the apartment cracked. Paint peeled. Voices escaped. Children crying. Dispatchers screaming. Gunshots. Sirens. Glass breaking. A timeline folding in on itself. You tackled it, fell through it, and landed in the living room. There was no furniture now, just a single rotary phone on the floor, ringing endlessly. You answered. "You made it," said the voice. You asked, "Where is this? Why does it keep looping?" The voice whispered, "Because you never stopped picking up." The apartment door creaked open behind you. For the first time, sunlight poured in. Real sunlight. You stepped through and found yourself in your cruiser, parked outside the building like none of it had happened. But when you looked down, the photograph of you and the woman was in your lap, and the tape recorder was still running, repeating a single phrase in your voice. The static never stops. You had heard the phrase before, at roll call in the break room late night. Rumors passed between exhausted patrol officers, too tired to laugh and too scared to admit they believed it. "There's a place where old calls go to die." They said it like a joke, but they didn't laugh when they said it. Because every city has one, a place where calls keep bouncing back, where every report leads nowhere, where backup arrives and finds no one. Where dispatch says, "We didn't send anyone." Your precinct called it the stacks. Unit 7 once said it was just a warehouse district filled with condemned housing and corroded trailer parks. But when Unit 7 stopped responding in 2011, they blamed the radios. You knew better. You always had. Because one night, just before your shift, you found something strange in your locker. A case file, stamped restricted. No BARCODE. No folder number. Just a paper-clipped Polaroid of a dark building and a sticky note. 5 words, handwritten in red ink. They never really left, you know. No sender, no explanation, and no one else admitted seeing it. You kept it in your locker for months, until last week, when the same address came through dispatch, a call from inside the old housing blocks off Winston Road. No one should have been there. The buildings were condemned in 9/8, officially, unofficially. People whispered that residents still moved behind the broken blinds. Their children were heard on the stairwells. That shadows paced the top floor, always just behind the curtain. And now, here you were, outside the complex. Engine, off sky purple, with pre-dawn gloom, street lights flickering, casting long broken halos across the pavement. You reached for the door handle, paused, and asked yourself one last time, why do you keep answering calls that no one else will? You stepped out of the cruiser. The air smelled of rot and electricity, like something had just been struck by lightning, and the ozone hadn't cleared. The building loomed ahead. 4 stories, shattered windows, paint the color of boiled meat balconies, sagging like pulled teeth. A sign over the entryway once read Cedar Arms Residences, but half the letters had fallen off. Now it just said, Dead Arm Resi __ NCE. You crossed the courtyard, boots crunching over glass and gravel. A swing set creaked in the wind. Even though there wasn't any, you reached the front door. It hung on one hinge. Peeling paint curled at the edges, like paper left too long in fire. You clicked on your shoulder mic. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I'm entering Cedar Arms. No sign of forced entry. No subjects visible. Silence. You tried again. Still nothing. Just the soft, static hum. The one you'd come to dread. You drew your flashlight and stepped inside. The lobby was choked with shadows. Old mail scattered across. The tile-like fallen leaves, flyers, notices, disconnection warnings, all dated decades ago, but they were crisp, new, untouched by time. Your beam swept across the room, to the far wall. An apartment directory, apartment for C, was circled in red ink. That wasn't there before. You were sure. You moved closer, and noticed something beneath the glass. A photograph, wedged inside. It showed 6 residents, standing on the 3rd floor balcony, staring into the camera. Expressionless, except for the woman in the middle. She was screaming, but the photo made no sound. You turned toward the stairwell. There was no elevator anymore, just steps wide, rotting, curved like the spine of some beast forced into retirement. You began climbing, and with each level, the lights grew dimmer. Not in the way electricity fades, but like something was devouring the glow before it could spread. On the 2nd floor, the walls pulsed. You stopped, listened, heard. Breathing, not yours. Slow, measured, deliberate. You turned your light toward the end of the hall, and there, a figure too, far to make out clearly. Motionless, you called out. It stepped sideways. Behind a door, gone. Gone. You moved faster. Up to the 3rd floor. Up to the 3rd floor. The air was heavier now. Each breath felt borrowed, as if the building wasn't giving you oxygen, but lending it and expecting repayment. The apartment doors were all closed, except 1.3b. Open a crack. Inside, whispers. Low. Familiar. You entered. Asterisk. Inside apartment 3B. The world shifted. It wasn't dramatic. No thunderclap. No lurch. Just wrong. The air felt like velvet soaked in vinegar, thick and bitter. The walls glowed faintly, as if lit from inside by something sickly, like the light you see behind your eyelids when you press too hard. Furniture lay under white sheets, but the sheets were breathing. You could see it, gentle rise and fall, synchronized, like lungs tethered to something deep below the floorboards. You didn't touch anything, just watched, listened. There was a sound coming from the hallway you'd just walked. Except this one wasn't coming from behind you. It was echoing inside your chest. A voice, yours. He never left. None of them did. And now, neither will you. You spun around. The doorway was gone. Just wall, no cracks, no seam, no handle, just gone. You blinked now. There were photographs on the wall of you inside this room, standing exactly where you stood now. Each photo taken from a slightly different angle, slightly different you, but always the same. Room. Always the same flashlight, always the same expression. You tried to speak, but your throat was lined with dust. You took a step back, and the photos fell to the ground in unison, all except one. The final framed in it, you were smiling, holding a phone behind you. The window was wide open. You turned. There was no window. Only a mirror, and in the mirror, the version of you holding the phone stepped forward, pressed a finger to the glass. Tap, tap, tap 3 times. You blinked again, and were standing outside apartment for C. The door was painted black. No number, no mail slot, no peephole. But you knew this was the one. This was the call. This was where all lost signals were routed. You reached for the knob, and a voice behind you whispered, "We answered once, and we're still here." You turned. Nothing, except a faint flicker of static in the hallway air, like heat above pavement. You opened the door. Inside was not an apartment. It was a call center. Ancient rows of old rotary phones, each ringing at its own cadence. Some fast, some slow, some barely audible. You walked the aisle. Each phone had a number tag, all former officers. Some you knew, some long gone, some who never came back from calls like this one. At the very end of the room, your name on a tag. Phone ringing, you picked it up and heard a child's voice say, "You left us here. Will you take us out now?" Asterisk, you didn't speak. Couldn't. The child's voice still echoed in the receiver. "Will you take us out now?" Then static, not loud but deep, like it came from the base of the world. You held the phone against your ear for a long time, listening to what you weren't sure. But you knew if you let go, you might forget everything again. You lowered it slowly, placed it back on the cradle. The ringing stopped. So did everything else. The lights dimmed. The air settled. The space around you became still. You turned around. The rows of phones were gone in their place. Hospital beds, hundreds of them, occupants hidden behind. Curtains, each one breathing in unison. You stepped forward. One of the curtains fluttered open. Inside, your partner, the one who vanished 5 years ago, still in uniform. Eyes closed, breathing shallow. Alive, you rushed forward. But your feet wouldn't move. You looked down. Your boots were submerged in black water, rising cold, thick thud. You reached for your radio. It was gone. No flashlight, no belt, no badge, only your heartbeat. Loud, unrelenting. The static never stops. It was a whisper again, not from the room, from your own mind. You closed your eyes and let go. You woke up, back in your cruiser, dawn, bleeding across the sky like bruises, healing in reverse. Dispatch crackled through your mic. Unit 12, status check. You blinked, answered, double quotes, still here. Still breathing, they replied. Copy, next call. 911 hang-up from Cedar Arms Residences. Are you available? You froze, looked at the clock. Same time, same day, same exact second as before. The photo of the apartment was back in your lap. The sticky note, those 5 red words bold again, not faded. They never really left, you know. Your radio chirped again, dispatch to Unit 12. Status, you exhaled. The world around you flickered, like a VHS worn too thin. And in the distance, inside that building, you heard phones ringing. You stepped out of the cruiser again. Same gravel crunch, same flickering swing, same broken letters, spelling dead armressy, __NCE.U. Didn't remember turning the engine off. You didn't remember putting the car in park. But here you were. Again. You looked down, same uniform, same badge number, same scar on your wrist from that case in 17. Everything the same, but not you. This time, you remembered. Everything. The loops, the mirrored halls, the voices calling out from phones that hadn't worked since before you were born. The children asking to be taken out. The apartment that watched you. The photographs that developed before you lived them. And the calls that never truly ended, just went silent for a while, waiting for the right frequency to begin again. You moved toward the building. This time, you didn't draw your flashlight. You didn't reach for your mic. You didn't call in your arrival. There was no point the moment you stepped past the threshold. Everything outside would forget you were ever here. You'd fade from the system, like every officer before you, like every soul that picked up when they shouldn't have. But you had to go in, because something, someone, was still waiting, still calling, still trapped in that warped moment where the first call never got an answer. You reached the top floor, apartment for C. The door was open, this time. The room was full of mirrors. You saw yourself in every direction, 1,000 versions. Some younger, some older, some broken, some hollow. But they all looked back at you with the same expression. Resignation. One mirror, in the very center, began to ripple. You stepped through it. No resistance, no sensation, like passing through memory on the other side. You were standing in a dispatch room, just like before. Only one phone remained. No tag, no ID, just a dull yellow receiver. It rang once, you answered, and a voice said, "We're all here now, thank you." Then silence, not empty, but whole, like something had finally completed itself. You placed the phone back in its cradle. The static didn't rise this time. You turned, walked through the dispatch room one last time, out the other side, into your cruiser. This time, the sky was clear. No glitch, no loop, just wind, trees, and birdsong. The call was over. You reached for your mic, pressed the button. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Clear from Cedar Arms. No further activity. A pause, then the reply. Copy that, Unit 12. Welcome back. You leaned back in your seat. Let the quiet settle, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the static stopped. You're back on patrol now. Different shift, different calls, but everything feels heavier. You still ride with the radio on. You still answer, dispatch. You still wear the badge, but something in you changed, and you feel it most when the roads are empty. When the streetlights flicker just a little too long. When the static cuts through the music, sharp and fast, and vanishes before you can ask if anyone else heard it. You don't talk about Cedar Arms, no one does. Even the rookies know better than to bring it up. The building's still there. You pass it sometimes, casually, like a place that doesn't exist until your headlights brush its edges. Then it stares back at you, like it knows, and you always keep driving, because that's how it works. It lets you leave, but only if you never look directly at it. Again, you made it out, but you're not untouched. The silence inside you now isn't peace. It's memory, a kind of weight that doesn't rest on your shoulders, but deep behind your eyes. You started sleeping with a radio beside your bed. Just static. No music, no dispatch, just noise. It's the only thing that lulls you now. The soft hiss reminds you that time hasn't stopped looping, that something, somewhere, is still alive, still reaching, still remembering, and part of you, the part that sat in that dispatch room, listening to the final call. It wants to go back, not out of fear, not even out of guilt, but because that place changed. You, the apartment, the closet door, the hidden stairs, the tape recorder that whispered your own voice back to you. That place knew your name before you ever stepped inside, and it's still waiting. You walk past your precinct's wall of honor every day. now used to be just names to you. Plaques, photographs, dates, now. They mean more, because you've heard some of them through the phone. You've read their final words on faded call sheets. You've seen their echoes wandering the mirrored halls of 3B. They never left. Some still whisper on the wind. Some sit at desks in rooms that don't exist anymore. Some cry through long dead phone lines. You know this now, and you carry it quietly, always. It's been months since the Cedar Arms call, but sometimes, at 3:17 a.m., that exact minute, you wake up in a cold sweat. No sound, no dream, just that timestamp, and in your chest, a pulse that doesn't feel like your own, as if someone, something, is checking to see. If you're still listening, you never speak when it happens. You just sit in the dark and listen. To the quiet tot, to the static, to the memory of phones that never rang for anyone. But you, there's one more thing. You've never told anyone, not your partner, not your therapist, not even the rookie who asked you what the worst call of your career was. But here it is. You kept the tape, the one from the crawl space. It still plays. No matter what batteries you use, no matter how many times you burn it, it always plays, and every time it begins the same way, with your voice whispering. The static never stops. Then silence. Then the sound of something breathing on the other end. Something old, something forgotten, something that's still waiting for you to return. And sometimes, late at night, you press play anyway.